Now, the address this morning is going to be given by myself. And let me begin by saying that it is wonderful to be back. For those of you who don't know, I was here at this headquarters until almost exactly 1 year ago, having been here for the previous 34 years, or actually more than half my life. And it feels very much like home to be here, and as if I never went away. Although in saying that, last month, just a few weeks ago, I also had the opportunity and privilege to visit our European headquarters, where I first found the Aetherius Society almost exactly 40 years ago. And that too felt like going home, very familiar. And it is a wonderful feeling to have. I think, as I said 1 year ago when I left, I'm not leaving. I'm merely going to a different part of the same ship. And indeed, all of us in the Aetherius Society are working together for the sake of the world from the same ship, the captain of which, of course, is our master. And while it is very nice to be a part of this ship and to visit different parts of the Aetherius Society, we can look out beyond the bows of the ship at the seas around us, which seem to be becoming ever more turbulent. And not to address that, but merely to observe that and the increasing winds and storms that seem to be arising. I think we all know in the Aetherius Society that it's not just a so-called political storm. That's just an aspect of it. In some ways, a small aspect of it. It's something far bigger than that. And earlier this week, I received a Substack that I subscribed to from someone I know quite well. And the title of the Substack was "We Are Going to Be Dead, Regardless of What We Do." I found that rather startling. And the author of this post said that's what a leading collapse expert says. In fact, there's a number of people, so-called experts, so-called intellectuals, who have come to that determination. And the author of this piece said, while I do a lot of thinking about humanity coming to its senses, I also have an awareness of an argument about how hopeless things are, whereby as early as 2030, we will have lost what keeps advanced civilization going. And she went on to say, here's what one expert has to say about this, and I quote, "We're going extinct. Maybe you missed that part. In other words, we are going to be dead, regardless of what we do. Previously and individually, this has always been the case. It is just that now our entire species will also go this route because the rate of evolution cannot match the rate of change." I noted that the author of this piece referred to as 2030, and I know that there are political is a political agenda around that particular year. I don't, as I say, wish to go there. But this being 2025, it puts it just 5 years away. And I remember in my youth, some of you also might remember, the David Bowie song, 5 years. The news guy wept and told us Earth was really dying. He cried so much his face was wet that I knew he was not lying. And I don't think it's necessarily that severe, certainly not in that way. But anyway, the author of this blog post chose to submit this concept, this idea, this thought, this very prevailing thought, that we've only got 5 years, to AI, to GPT, and said, some would argue, putting it to AI, some would argue that while our current model of civilization is doomed, some form of advanced civilization could still emerge post-collapse, after the collapse. It might be less globalized, lower in energy consumption, and more decentralized, but not necessarily a return to the Stone Age. Do you agree with the experts' stance completely, or do you think there's room for adaptation, something that we can't foresee, that could keep an advanced civilization going? And then she adds, like if the aliens landed. This is what ChatGPT had to say in response. But it was interesting that she even posed that. If we take it as a given that adaptation within our current system is impossible and collapse is inevitable, then the only things that could save an advanced civilization would be external shocks, events that are outside our current expectations or control. For example, 1, alien intervention. ChatGPT goes on to say, if an advanced extraterrestrial civilization arrived with technology beyond our comprehension, they might provide solutions to energy, resource, management, or planetary restoration. Well, far more importantly than David Bowie's song, the words that came to my mind were words delivered by the master Aetherius over 70 years ago, on November the 28th, 1954, before the Aetherius Society had even become established, just months after George King received the command. These words are published in the book, You Are Responsible. And the master Aetherius said, pointed out, told us that the evolution of mankind is now being speeded up in order to reach a certain point within a certain time limit. Cooperate with the speeding up. Help it. Become the beings who speed this up, and I promise you 1 million helpers. If you do, you will never regret any time you have spent in this wonderful way. There is so much for all of you to do, but so little time in which you can do it. Then strike the gong of the present, so that the echoes may be magnified by the future. These are the teachings which we, from the interplanetary governmental systems, wish you to take, absorb, believe, and act upon. Then we can make our next move. which will be free movement among you and direct help given in your schools, universities, hospitals, and governments. If you go out of your way to reach up to us, we can and we will come out of our way down to you. But you must move. We cannot come unless you do this. That is the law. We do not break the law. I think there are two very good reasons why the Master Aetherius made that statement. The lesser one, but nonetheless a very significant one, is that he would have known that within just a few months, 6 months, a great extraterrestrial craft would be coming into orbit around this Earth at regular intervals. That craft we know as Satellite Number 3, which we first learned about on May the 28th, 1955, just 6 months after this transmission, enhancing all spiritual aspects by a factor of 3,000 times. Personally, I think it is the single most important catalyst for quickening and change in terms of all the tools that the Cosmic Masters have given us. Remember how our Master said with Operation Sunbeam, when he learned that because of all the help that had been given in terrestrial bodies, primarily, of course, himself, in performing Operation Sunbeam, it had enabled this craft to come into orbit for an extra 167 days. He knew how valuable that craft was and is in the speeding up, in a positive way, in a spiritual way, of humanity. But again, far more importantly even than Satellite Number 3, he would have known of the primary initiation of the Mother Earth, which was due to be given to this Earth after the 18 million years which she has endured humanity since the destruction of Maldek, going through Lemuria and going through Atlantis. And that cosmic plan, of course, is for the salvation and enlightenment of all mankind. This wonderful plan that is being orchestrated, devised, foreseen by these even solar lords who we heard about in the reading, all for the well-being in this natural evolutionary process, taking everything into account with love. With love. And in terms of salvation, to a very large extent, that's already happened. That's already taken place with Operation Carmelite. The primary reason that the 3 adepts came to this earth, performed not immediately after the initiation of Earth on July the 8th, 1964, but in the coming years. And perhaps the only reason that it was not immediately performed was because of another mission, the alien mission, when those 3 adepts needed to be supplemented by 2 more. And a few weeks ago, I came across an article our Master had written in the Aetherius Society newsletter during the alien mission. I must have forgotten it, but it struck me. It was written in a special edition on August 1965 and is titled The Greatest Occult Revelation in History, talking of the bigger picture. On July the 8th, 1964, the most significant date in your calendar, no matter what your religious beliefs may be, the initiation of Earth took place. Tremendous energies were given to the mighty goddess beneath your feet. The alien intelligence in the lower astral realms has, according to the master Aetherius, been there for eons of time. It is possible that the energy given to Earth during her primary initiation flushed this intelligence out of some state of negative contemplative bliss, which it was in, stirred it into forceful and dreaded action. And this is the statement that struck me. How it got into the lower astral realms of this planet in the first place has not yet been revealed. But it is possible that this intelligence was responsible for the destruction of Maldek. As I say, that struck me. The same intelligence, possibly, that had caused the destruction of Maldek, that great fall which humanity had before, in inverted commas, the myth of the Garden of Eden, when we fell, has now been removed, from this earth. And in a transmission given on April the 7th, 1961, in Detroit, 1960, I beg your pardon, April the 7th, 1960. Mars Sector 6, coming back to how I began, with the evolution of mankind being speeded up, he made his own statement relevant to what so-called experts and intellectuals are now saying and thinking, that these are the last days of the old order. These are the last days of the old order. And in that same transmission, this intelligence we know as Mars Sector 6, again written up in the book You Are Responsible, following the initiation of Earth. He said, terrestrial man faces many problems in the interim period. He faces the possibility of war, brought about by the scheming few, who have successfully trapped the unthinking majority by their insidious conditioning campaign. He faces disease, which is now prevalent upon the planet. He faces the direct result of another's greed, another's lust for power, another's wrongful control. He faces the direct results of those thermonuclear weapons he has already exploded. He faces the prospect of freak weather conditions caused mainly by the gross disruption of finely balanced terrestrial magnetic conditions. He faces mutation in future generations, brought about by cellular disease, caused by the mutated acceleration of cellular division. These things do men face this night. These things can all be put right by man if he decides this night to throw his God-given energies into the channels of construction, away from the channels of destruction. Service and cooperation are the keynotes which will enable mankind to put right these conditions. Indeed, mankind upon Terra has the greatest opportunities ever offered to any other life streams in the whole solar system at any time since its inception. For man upon Terra has fallen so low, the climb back could be far more glorious than any yet accomplished since the inception of this solar system. Service and cooperation. I think it needs to become a mindset that we all have. Remember from another cosmic master, we were told cooperation will save you. Cooperation will save you. It's something we all need to be, as I say, extremely mindful of. Not division, but cooperation. And in that same, and particularly dare I say, or should I say, must I say, cooperation with the cosmic plan as it is being played out through the Aetherius Society. This organization, we've been told, is the master cog, not for any sake of elitism, but simply because it is the tool of the cosmic masters, or the main tool for helping our world, for bringing to mankind the knowledge of the existence of these beings and how they're helping us and the ways in which they are helping us. In that same transmission, given, as I say, on April the 7th, 1960, the Master Aetherius weighed in with these words. He said, discriminate. And it's in bold letters, discriminate, with an exclamation mark. Treat the real teachings as being sacred teachings, and discrimination will come to you like the dawning of a new day. Then you will be fired with a spiritual ambition, an ambition which will help you go forward and help to bring enlightenment to your brothers upon earth. As I say, the salvation for the most part has been done. It's enlightenment now that we need. In the founding of the Aetherius Society, in those early years in the 1950s, we were given several aims and objects. First one being to spread the teachings of the Master Jesus, the Master Aetherius, and other cosmic masters. The second being to administer spiritual healing. I'm not sure if it's the third, but another one was prepare for the coming of the next master, which would be one of those external shocks that ChatGPT was referring to, and will happen at some point. It's just a matter of when it happens. And I think that's been changed. And I think in certain ways, those aims and objects have not so much been changed, but there's been a slight twist, if you like. Because in those early years, we did not have Operation Sunbeam. We did not have Operation Prayer Power or the Saturn mission. We didn't even have Operation Space Power. And certainly not Operation Space Power 2, which the Master Aetherius, which was given to us, I think, in 1987, Master Aetherius said at the time, Operation Space Power 2 has changed many things. And in August of 1990, he delivered a very important declaration through our Master, or as a mental transmission, again written up in cosmic voice, when the Master Aetherius said, may I stress this, please? In the future, it has to be the missions first, spreading the teachings second, and other matters after that. And as I say, that change almost certainly was made because through our Master, and really only because of our Master, we have these missions, which are buying humanity more time to make this change, to become aware of UFOs, which they now call UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, because it's not just aerial. And it's coming more and more out into the open. Humanity is being changed, is becoming aware of these craft. It's entered the mainstream. There are questions being asked in the House of Congress. Direct questions. There's a pressure on this government, and no doubt all governments, all Western democracies, to reveal this information because too many people are experiencing and seeing these craft, these vessels, and not just anybody, not anybody who's random or drunk. No, trained people in the military, in intelligence. There's just been the release of a wonderful documentary about it, Disclosure is being pushed upon us, thank goodness. Time is being bought for humanity to change. And another very interesting development in that whole movement has been a phrase or a new word, the buzzword. It's now the buzzword, which is psionics. Psionics, if you've heard of psionics. Psionics deals with the sort of psychic, telepathic, metaphysical, spiritual aspect of these aliens. And at a conference recently held earlier this year at the Ubiquity University in Northern California, where this topic was, I think it was the main topic, and the, again, so-called experts, well-known names, figures, and faces in the UAP movement were all there. And they chastised themselves. They chastised themselves for ignoring what they termed the most important aspect of these craft, of these beings, not the sort of so-called re-engineering of how they work. Who is it? What is it? What is it? Who are they? Who is visiting us? What does it mean? Profound questions. These are the questions that are now being put forward in that movement, in this awakening that's taking place. And in fact, I'd already contacted the president of the Ubiquity University a few weeks ago, and he responded, because in one of their conferences the name George King had come up, and he was curious to know more. And I had a very enjoyable Zoom call with him. Jim Garrison is his name, earlier this week, informing him more about the real deep end of these communications. They're in the shallow end. The Aetherius Society is the deep end. And so in terms of summing up, we've been given the salvation in Operation Carmelite and the alien mission by the adepts. We've been given that. We know that these are the last days of the old order. Mars Sector 6 went on to say, the new order for you will be greater peace, greater joy, conditions beyond your wild imaginings. With the alien no longer here, that which very possibly brought down Maldek, no longer here, conditions beyond our wild imaginings. And I think, perhaps most especially, as the Master Aetherius said, treat these teachings, what he calls the real teachings, the sacred teachings. This evolutionary journey we're all on as outlined in those 9 freedoms. The fact that these are the last days of the old order, that the initiation of Earth has taken place, that things will change, have to change. And coming back to the manipulation in Operation Sunbeam, which enabled satellite number 3 to come into orbit for those extra 167 days. It was because of those interterrestrial bodies who'd made that karmically possible. Those interterrestrial bodies. That's us. That's us. To relook at, or not relook, but remind ourselves that these real teachings that we have been given are sacred teachings. They're the pivot for enlightenment upon this earth. They're the pivot upon which this whole world is depending for their future. And failing that, as Mars Sector 6 said, or rebirth upon a younger world, to relive the terrors of the history you have made upon this planet. Choose and act.